Hey guys, I recently realized I haven't been maximizing my presence here on YouTube with videos about, scientific research and progressive politics. So I figured it's time to really pump up my subscribers by picking a topic that's just sure to be a hit with the YouTube audience. Old people getting divorced. You want to know more about that, right? This is probably the first time you've seen my channel because the algorithm was like, yes, gray divorce is the hot topic for you. You're gonna love this. So normally when I'm covering gender stuff, it's from my own feminist perspective, and I usually do focus on women's rights, but that doesn't mean that I don't care about the way that our society fucks up men. In the past, I have talked about incels, the older male suicide epidemic, and other problems specific to men. And so it's maybe no surprise that last week I was fascinated by a new study that found that when couples get divorced at an older age, over 50, after their children have grown up and left the home, usually, the divorced men have worse outcomes than their ex-wives. Specifically, adult children tend to strengthen their bonds with their mothers following a divorce while drifting away from their fathers and thus leaving them, quote, at a higher risk of social isolation. German sociologists got this result by examining the familial relationships of 606 adult children of parents who got divorced at an older age, specifically looking at how the divorce altered contact frequency, emotional closeness, and instrumental and emotional support provided to parents. They found that adult-child solidarity intensified for mothers but eroded for fathers. This impact was strongest for changes in contact frequency, moderate for changes in emotional closeness, and smaller for changes in support. Daughters tended to be even more supportive of their mothers compared to sons. Now, my initial knee-jerk reaction to that was to feel intense pity for the fathers. Like, how awful for them that they not only have to go through a surely traumatic breakup of a long-term relationship, and, that often comes along with losing some friends as well, but to go through all that, but also to be abandoned by your own adult children. That's awful. But then I started thinking more about the why, which this study does not explore. Might the kids be, for instance, more annoyed at whichever parent initiates the divorce? That may be true, but research shows that most gray divorces are actually initiated by the women. Would the children more likely to only support the partner who comes off worse out of the divorce, financially or emotionally? Maybe, but while women tend to take a bigger financial hit, research shows that men also tend to be worse off after a divorce at an older age. So if you love both of your parents, why would you end up only supporting your mother? And I was thinking about all this when I got a text from my mom asking me to call her soon because it's important. And I hate these texts because it means that either a relative has died or she's accidentally locked herself out of her Words with Friends account. So I gave her a call. I explained how to reset her Words with Friends password. And just before hanging up, she said that my father had walked in the room and would I like to talk to him? And in the distant past, I would always say yes. And she would convince my dad to get on the phone. We would have a very awkward 30-second conversation consisting mostly of long pauses before he says, "Welp." And I understand that, okay, it's time for us to hang up. These days, I've realized neither of us is benefiting much from this conversation. So now when she asks, I just say, no, that's okay. He's probably busy. Tell him I love him and I'll talk to him later. And I hang up. And that interaction got me thinking, if my parents were to get divorced, would I strengthen my relationship with my dad? Probably not. And it hurts to admit it, but yeah, it would probably damage our relationship, even if the divorce was completely friendly, mutual, no nasty accusations on either side, because right now, my mom does 99% of the work to maintain an open relationship between me and my dad. I can count on one hand the number of times my dad has called me ever in my entire life. And I'm pretty sure that each time he did, it was to tell me that my mom was in the hospital or something. She literally could not get on the phone herself, so he had to call. So yeah, if my mom is no longer there to force my dad to get on the phone with me on birthdays and other holidays, it would have to be my dad suddenly starting to do the work that he probably has no idea is required to maintain these types of relationships. I don't think my experience is unique. I think a lot of people who grew up in the 80s and 90s have a similar situation. Dad was the primary breadwinner. My mom worked part-time, and she did the majority of the child rearing. Now they're both retired, and of course there are no kids living at home, but for the past 25 years, my mom has still continued to be the primary parent to me and my siblings. It's just the emotional labor that women in relationships have been saddled with for generations. And I do think things are changing for the better, and they have been for some time. I'm pretty sure a growing number of men these days realize that they need to step up and actively parent their children, not least because women are now staying in the workplace after having kids. It's unfortunately much harder these days to support a family with just one income, which means the days of the stay-at-home mom who does it all are pretty much over. And so more and more people, both men and women, are realizing the benefits of both parents pulling their weight. Despite gender equality getting better over the years, research does still show that overall women perform more unpaid and emotional labor than men. And not even at home, they're doing the same in workplaces and in all other kinds of relationships. And it's not because our chromosomes just come with a level up on emotional intelligence. Vast amounts of research show that how much unpaid emotional labor people perform isn't up to their sex, but more about their gendered construction of how they see themselves. It's about how we see our role in society, regardless of our sex. So that means that even in relationships between two men, the partner who is more feminine is the one who will most likely take on the bulk of that emotional unpaid labor. So congratulations to lesbians for being the only type of relationship thus far studied who seem to be able to avoid this shit. Anecdotally, I do have friends, women my own age, who continue to be the ones doing that extra labor of building and maintaining relationships. When I go out with other couples, and I'm included in this, it's usually the women who communicate about the details and actually solidify the plans to hang out. I even had a recent long-term relationship in which not only did I have to do most of the housework, but I had to force my boyfriend to hang out with his own friends. And also with the few friends I had who he would tolerate, because he claimed to just be annoyed by everyone. And when I finally broke up with him, I heard from a few friends who were really upset with me because now he had no one to lean on. And I was like, well, yeah, because he put in zero work on maintaining any relationships at all. So should I also feel bad that he now has to wash all of his own dishes and do his own laundry? But, I do feel bad because, probably because I'm a woman who's conditioned to feel bad for men even when they hamstring themselves. But it sucks that there are all of these adult men walking around who legitimately have no idea how much work women are doing for them. And the only way they're going to find out is when something horrible happens and they're forced to confront the world without all that free labor that was being done for them in the background. And I do wonder how much of the male loneliness epidemic is due to our society failing to teach men how to put in that effort to actually build and maintain relationships, not just romantic, not just parental and child relationships, but friendships. Actually, all of this just reminded me of one more anecdote. At the funeral for my mom's sister, the widower, my uncle, turned to my mom and explained to her that his glasses were dirty. And my mom was very confused as to why it was important for her to have this information. But then he just took his glasses off and handed them to her. And she said, "What are you doing? Clean your own glasses." And he was shocked. He didn't know how to clean his own glasses, he claimed, because my aunt always did that for him. And it was a big red flag of what was to come because it turns out that my aunt did absolutely everything for him. And after her death, he just became this giant elderly baby who had to be coddled and cared for with kid gloves until he inevitably ended up in a home where people were paid good money to do those things for him. And man, it's so sad. It's sad that my aunt spent her entire life raising children, but then also caring for the adult child who was her husband. And it's sad that when she was gone, he had absolutely no skills to interact with his family or take care of himself or his house. Patriarchy just really fucks over everybody. So rates of gray divorces are on the increase, and other research demonstrates that parents who don't maintain relationships with their adult children end up with worse health outcomes. So it seems like we're just going to continue to see an increase in the male loneliness epidemic that people like talking about. More and more elderly men are going to be left floundering when their wives leave, and there's really no easy fix. Conservatives are trying to do away with no-fault divorce, which is one solution, just stop the women from leaving. But personally, I think that a better solution would be to teach these men how to have healthy relationships, like with their kids, with their partners, with anyone. Maybe with a dog. Could we start like a nonprofit where we pair elderly men with elderly divorced men with shelter dogs and just teach them like basic communication and love? And I don't know. That sounds flippant, but I actually think I'm onto something here. Men would learn how to combat their loneliness and shelter dogs would get adopted. Win-win. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. If you loved the video, please subscribe. And if you think the world could use more videos like this and you happen to have a few bucks laying around, head to patreon.com/Rebecca and join an awesome community of nerds like the people whose names you see on the screen right now. Thanks.